Hello, hi. I'm Kaustabh here. Welcome to the show. And if you allow me, if I may ask, can I call you Ramki?
Oh, by all means.
By all means, wonderful. You call me Kaustabh. So, and wonderful to have you here on the show. So, how do we begin? I mean, from your let's say from the place that you belong to and your journey across beyond the frontiers across the Atlantic, and if you could come on that. And then I would of course I would butt in between. I would butt in and I would poke you with your permission.
By all means. So if
Please.
I've stayed in the same job the last 22 years, so I haven't really had an interview where I've been asked to say something about myself. So I may be a little rusty on the way I structure my response, and I have a good
Never
excuse
mind,
for
never mind.
that.
Never mind,
But
you feel free. You don't have to structure. You just feel free and you go all guns blazing. No
so
problem.
so maybe I will sort of give you my my story from origins. I was
Yes.
born in Delhi. My grandparents, my grandfather was in the home ministry, and I spent a few years in Delhi with my grandparents. My father went to study in England, and my mom accompanied him. So my brother and I were in Delhi.
Okay.
We moved to Madras, at some point, and I did all my schooling and college in Madras. Um, and then I went and got an MBA, worked for a few years in India, and then came to the US, worked for a couple of years, saved some money, went back to business school, and then finished another MBA and moved to finance. I've been in New York the last 22 years, and in the
Wow.
East Coast the last 24 years.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Like I said, with the same employer. I
Okay.
moved
Okay.
a few towns.
Ah,
I moved last weekend as well, but I do live in New Jersey. So
yeah.
that's my sort of story in a nutshell.
Okay. Okay.
There's a lot to unpack, and I'm happy to sort of respond.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Now, if I may come in, uh, Madras, as we used to, I mean, me as a student those days, I visited Madras number of times, and that used to be during the festival that used to take place at IIT Madras, Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras, of course. I
Mardi
have very fond memories of Mardi Gras.
Gras. So that was the time that I used to visit Madras, and I used to be taken in and amazed by the layout of the city and the architecture,
Hmm.
especially on the front and especially all across, and the wonderful institutions that it has: Madras Christian College, Loyola.
Right.
I can't imagine something like that anywhere in the country. I don't think anything of that exists anywhere in any other city. I mean, look at MCC, look at Presidency Madras, look at Loyola. I mean, I was in awe of the place. And there was always this this disconnect, I would say, that people from the other part of the country, across the Vindhyas, or maybe from other part of the country, they would come down to Madras with a very kind of a kind of a story and opinion. But in order to visit a place, you need to be absolutely free of your mind. So when I visited there, incidentally, of course, a big thing was, and since I grew up there in Calcutta, my immediate neighbors, in the neighborhood that we lived in, my immediate neighbors, they were Ayers. Okay. And they were Ayers from Chittoor, Palakkad, not from the Delta. Okay. So,
Got
but
it.
they were Tamils. And from my infancy, I could take in and absorb everything about Madras and South India. So I was very thrilled later on, much later on in college when I went across and I visited. And Mardi Gras was an experience. I mean, there are few things I don't think I can expand or elaborate on that. Those are those are something you
I can,
you would understand
I,
and things that
and
we
yeah,
indulged
totally,
and
totally know and totally relate to the things you talk about.
okay, so wonderful. So then okay, you carried on from there and you moved ahead and I won't butt in, I won't disturb you. Please carry on with your story. So from Madras to XLRI uh, to
No,
US,
Madras is definitely a place that has a special place in my heart. And like, I'm
obviously.
glad, we talked about calling it Madras because it sort of evokes a feeling that Chennai doesn't. It evokes
No, it doesn't.
uh,
There's
uh,
something elementary.
a sense
There's
of
something elementary about
familiarity and
Madras.
comfort, at least
Comfort.
for me.
Yeah.
And like you said, the institutions that you talked about, whether it's IIT, whether it's the Theosophical Society next door, or
Mm.
MCC, I mean, these institutions are very much, part of the city's personality, if you will.
Yes,
And I think it helps to preserve the Madras is still a very green city. Every time
it
you sort of
is.
land in Madras, you look down, you see a lot of greenery. And
It is.
granted, it's become, it's spread out a lot and you have a lot more apartments like other metros, but there is
Right.
still places in Madras that have independent homes. Thankfully, my parents are in Madras and in the home that I grew up in, and that house is about 70 years old. But it's one of those few houses still standing, but I'm glad it's still there, and
Wonderful.
there's greenery around where we grew up.
Wonderful.
So back to your point. Really what drove my decision was to come here really was, I liked to work in finance. And in India, I worked, my last job was with Motorola. And while I really had a wonderful manager, the nature of work I was doing was I tried to make it a lot more quantitative. And it was the same thing with Titan when I worked in Titan, when I was hired from the campus in 1993 at XLRI Jamshedpur. I was based out of the factory, and my sort of natural strength and inclination was to work with numbers. So the work I did, and there's only so much, HR can sort of
Hmm.
give you room for to work with numbers. And I said, given my original, uh, bachelor's was in commerce, I had also done, CWA. So my comfort and my sort of inclination was to work with numbers. And I said I might as well work in finance and transition, the right way. And I really wanted to work in New York, basically do uh, work around Wall Street. So I came to the US. I had an opportunity to work in a company in Michigan.
Hmm.
This company is called Sintel. It's a tech company,
Okay.
and they had hired a few folks from XLRI and TIS,
Okay.
for their human resources practice. So I moved there in 98, worked for a couple of years, and set aside. It was a pretty frugal living then. I did go watch a lot of concerts, but that was the only sort of excesses I allowed. Again, going back to Mardi Gras days, right? I think watching
Uh-huh.
professional bands play at the open air theater in IIT Madras. So you do develop a following for bands, the 60s bands
Yes.
in particular. So when
Yes. Yes.
them still touring, like, I
Yes.
remember waiting outside before the days of Ticketmasters. I remember waiting outside a record shop at really, like 7 or 7:15 on a November morning in Michigan. And those that those months can be pretty treacherous, just so I could get tickets to watch the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
Uh, so clearly, managed to catch a lot of music those 2 years, and also, of course, apply to business schools. And then I was fortunate to get into Yale University, where I did an MBA. And then at the end of which I joined Standard and Poor's, where I continue to work. I've moved around within S&P a bit, but it's been a fantastic employer and provided tremendous opportunities, both growth opportunities and learning opportunities. So um, it's been 22 years, and that's a really long time. But then,
It
oddly
is.
enough, if you look at my colleagues at S&P, they've all, it's like Hotel California, you never leave.
You said it. You said it. Lovely. And tell us something about your years in Yale. I mean, it's
Sure.
part of the Ivy League, and tell us something about that.
I think, you know, one of the biggest things that I saw was the difference in the profile of people who came to business school in US versus India. In India, it's mostly you're straight out of college, and you really don't have the wisdom of having worked in some place and to bring that um, and bring that experience and that conversation to a classroom where you are able to tie out a lot of the abstract concepts to what you do, which people were able to do in Yale. You know, the average work experience was about 5 years. So you had people who'd worked 15, 20 years. I had worked for about 6, 7 years. So that did two things. One is you're able to share a lot more of your experiences, which brought some of these concepts to life. The second thing that I noticed was, I think you um, because there is a certain difference in the system of education here, and the fact that you have, you know, people who are 28, 30 years old, the professors are also, you know, they treat you not like students, they treat you like peers here. There is a certain responsibility and accountability that you need to take. There's the honor system. But the one thing I found, Kaustabh, was the quality of faculty here, um, I think was of a very different order. Just given the pressure that they had, it's a lot of work to be a professor here till you're tenured. Once you're tenured, I think life becomes a little easy, but the expectations for you to stay, you know, on top of your subject matter in terms of what you need to publish and really be at the edge of everything that's happening in your domain is very high. And so, you know, I found professors here to be incredibly accomplished and really willing to share their you know, understanding, knowledge, and really treating you like a peer, you know. So you never felt bashful about approaching them with questions, things that didn't make sense to you. And I remember this one exam where we were allowed a cheat sheet, and I didn't have a formula for something, and the proctor was the professor, happened to be the professor who taught us the class. And I walked up to him and I said, you know, I actually forgot, I don't have the formula for this. And he said, oh, I don't remember. But then he pulled out a piece of paper and he just derived it for me and he gave it to me. And, you know, that really is one of the indelible memories I have of that university, right? I can see that someone in India would say, well, how irresponsible, or whatever. Maybe that's changed now. But in my time, I wouldn't have even approached. I would have just let that question pass. So to me, that, you know, the fact that you have people who are coming there with, you know, more years of experience, and the fact that you have, you know, I'm not dissing. I had some of the best professors in XLRI, you know, folks like Shukla, fantastic. But I think before you're tenured, you are expected to do a lot here, and many of the professors who taught us were on a tenure track and were really on top of their game. Of course, the ones who were tenured, you know, were the program I was um, in fact, the professor that I went to, he's done a lot of work with folks like French, who was a Nobel Kenneth French, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics with Eugene Fama. So this Professor Ingersoll has really done a lot of work, and he's a pretty big name. But again, you can go to him with like the most basic of questions, and he'll sort of be part of that journey, figuring it out with you.
That's a wonderful thing. So if I were to put this across to you, like, even in the best of institutions in India, even as of today, let's not drop names. I'm talking about the best in the country. And since we are talking about management, whether be it management or science or just about anything, I'll tell you why I'm saying so. There was a period when I was associated with the Swedish company ABB. Okay.
Sure. I know.
And I was associated with them, and I got to know them very close, from very close quarters, how they address and how they go about their work, their operations. Okay. I specifically remember that I was told that, with all due regards, in your country, the education and everything about it is about questions and answers, and that sums up your life. That's where you end up. It's all about questions and answers, whereas ours is not so. I mean, what he expressed is, you start from school to college to later on, it is just about questions and answers. So if there's a question, if you have the answer, you have it. But if there's a question, you don't have the answer, you can't be doing anything. So you are lost. So it is not about solutions. It is always about, keeping the problem in mind and going ahead with it. It is not about solutions at all. It is not about, enabling you to move out and start working on things so that you think and you act likewise. It may be tough, it may be hard. So what's your take on this? I mean, having been there in Yale after XLRI.
Right. No, I think you summed it up well. It's a very binary thing, right? Even when you look
Binary,
at,
yes.
yeah, if you look at the way papers are graded here, um, the courses I took were fairly quant heavy. So obviously finance had a lot of quant heavy courses. Um, you get points even if you don't get the right answer. If you get points for the steps, you get points for the way you approach the problem. So in my first year, I remember I took the I guess it was math, basically math and stats. Um, I came out feeling pretty dreadful because I knew like I'd missed a couple of things. And in India, I'd have gotten zero because I didn't get the right answer there, right? It's either you get the right answer or you don't. You make a silly mistake and you do something. Some professors might be generous and give you something, but for most part, the system would say you didn't get the right answer. And whereas here, you get points. So even if you miss the last step, you may miss one out of 10 points for the question, or maybe two, but you get the other 8 or 9 points. And um, and in some ways, that pretty much defines the big difference here. You either, like you said, you don't have to know the answer, but you can explore. You can try and look at options. It helps you think, right? And that's the main
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
If you look at textbooks in India, um, there are, the concepts are a few pages, and then there are several question and answers. So you
Right.
basically know how to solve, and it becomes a question of pattern recognition more than
Right.
understanding the concepts and applying them.
Absolutely.
Whereas here, it's, you have concepts, and then there'll be 3 questions or 4 questions.
Ah,
And what you get in the exam will be very different from any of those 3 or 4. And so that can be difficult for people who are used to, a certain way of approaching because they are familiar and they know they recognize the patterns. and that doesn't work. If you truly understand the principle, you should be able to apply that anywhere. And I think that's another
Right,
fundamental difference that
right,
I think sort
right,
of
right.
pretty much goes to the point you make.
That's exactly what I actually wanted to share and hear this from you, since you have walked it. And I thought that yes, you are the one who would be able to, because having been here and there, two different atmospheres altogether, two different dissimilar, you can say, environment. And I thought that you would be able to, and how wonderfully you have put it across, that yes, it is all about, giving you the chance and the ability to think and come out with, and that you are appreciated for your efforts and for whatever you put in. You may be 8 out of 10, you may be 6 out of 10, but you get your 6,
Correct.
which is something quite different than
Yeah.
as it is then in our country. And ironically, it is still the same, if not worse, if you look at it honestly.
Which is quite
uh,
a shame, just given the
it is
kind
a
of
shame. It is
raw
a shame.
talent you have in India. Some of the smartest people
Hmm,
I know were in high school with me.
hmm,
XLRI also had a lot of smart people.
hmm.
But I think the way that smartness is harnessed is a little different here. And I think the fact that, you have a certain requirement for work experience before you go to business school also helps
It does.
tremendously, like I said.
It does. It certainly does. Look, the thing is, our approach is quite unlike the way things are being approached or, addressed or looked at by the place where you are working. And it's quite different. Our fundamentals are different, the way we look at things.
Mm,
Our things are, in a way, very structured, and the path is, right in front of you. You are to follow that path. You are not to, deviate from that. Like as in that poem of Robert Frost, that okay, fine, you end up at a place, there are two paths. Now you take to the one less traveled.
pardon.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So we don't do that. We always follow, we always try to be safe. So we prefer being safe.
Mhm.
We prefer ensuring for ourselves a good life with creature comforts. Our essence is feathering your nest. I mean, I'm getting a bit blunt. Okay. So it is about, feathering your nest. So it is not about, with your open eyes and with your mind and your eyes, you're looking at the world, and you are going about it, embracing just about everything. You have your bit, and you enjoy, you contribute, and to the extent that you can. It is not about that. It is been, and this has been the story. The narrative has remained the same. There are exceptions, of course. Exceptions are there, and things, to an extent, I would say it has come in, but that is negligible.
Mm.
Even today, much has to be done. The irony is, I don't wish to get into things political, because I don't want to. Irony is that, when our country happened in 47. Prior to that, let's not get into history. Okay.
Mm.
So our country happened in 47. And after 47, after much turmoil, so the person who took control of things, he was a visionary. He was open-minded. He got people from across, from different backgrounds, from different areas. He got them together, and he created a few institutions, a few places with a dream in mind. So that was, he ushered in a kind of liberalism in free thinking. But after his passing away, everything stopped. We got back into the rut.
Right.
and we carried on with it. And over the years, things have not appreciated. Rather, it has gone down. I mean, this is a state of affairs. It's sad, but I don't get impressed or by figures like, okay, fine, we have so many number of billionaires. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense if you look at it. But overall, if you look at the place where you are working, and how people are engaged and how people are contributing, they're delivering, it is heaven and hell. I mean, the way they go about their lives and the way they go about contribute and help develop things. It's totally different. I mean, if you could come on this.
I'm not sure I'm qualified, but I can tell
No,
you,
no, it's not
I
about that. None of us,
no,
neither are you
I
qualified.
do agree with you on, certainly I agree with you with, I'm guessing, this, you talked about, centers of excellence like IIT, which is really,
Yes,
visionary thinking
yes,
on Nehru's
yes.
part. And I think those are fantastic, right? They are really our best exports. And,
Mm,
any institute you go to, even in the US, you can be somewhat assured that if there's someone from IIT, that person is
mm,
doing really well there, right?
yes.
I think that's the kind of raw talent. But
Ah,
at the same time, I read a McKinsey report
ah,
that said something like over 80% of engineering graduates in India are not employable, right? And that was a pretty sad statistic to see,
it
right?
is. It
And
is.
and so it goes back to the point that you make firstly, which is, what is being taught to these guys? Who are the professors teaching them? Do they know, the subject themselves? What kind of agenda or motivation does this institution have when they are hiring these people? And who are the founders? What are they? Do they have a vision, beyond sort of filling their pockets? Do they have uh, philanthropic motive, which is very much, encouraged here in, it's very much in people's
Yes.
DNA here to contribute. And, granted in India, charity begins at home and all that. But if you look at even some of the, wealthy Indians, I understand that their contribution to charity is a lot less uh, than pretty much across the world. I would say on average, there's more. So to sort of look beyond yourself, to look beyond your, I think you used the word feathering your nest, but the phrase rather, it's really well put, to look beyond that, to see how you can contribute. And this country's had a history of people, whether it's a Rockefeller or
Yes.
uh, Carnegie or any
Yes.
of these, and then again, today you have whether it's Bill Gates,
Right.
or even Berkshire Hathaway, or I forget the gentleman from Salesforce, what the CEO is. But there is,
True.
or even S&P, my company for that matter, is doing a lot of good work outside the construct of ratings, outside the construct of indices, that it's really it's bread and butter.
Right. Right.
And that's, again, that's very much a part of, I would say, it's a fabric of this country's society to be
Yes.
philanthropic. And I'm sure European countries are probably even more in terms of how much they set aside for charity. And and so where it goes to is uh, thinking beyond the self, thinking beyond sort of your individual needs, and to think about society at large, right? And think about how do we and as especially when you look at the governance structures too, moving to politics, I think you sort of touched on politics. um you do have lobbying and things like that here, some of which is pretty abhorrent, but at the end of the day you have governance and accountability. And you know the kind of corruption that you find in India, I think is very sort of discouraging, right? It's right in front of you. It's so apparent, but still nothing can get done. Obviously, it's not the case here. Some things like that would never, I think, happen here. I mean, there's definitely corruption of a very different order here, but um, like I said, it's not something I've really thought through. But I think there is, as you said, big difference day and night, I would say. Giving is a natural part of the society or the individual here. And
It is.
perhaps, in India, we of course we are still a developing country, so not everybody can give, but the ones who can give generously are not. And I think that needs to change.
I think, yeah, wonderful. You summed it up there. But it's time, if you bear me out, it's time that we need to get out of this cliche that we are a developing country. I mean, we should not be using that again and again that we are developing. How long are we going to develop? I mean, are we eternally we are developing? I mean, this is being used across, and I don't quite. I mean, why do we need to fall back on an excuse that okay, we are developing? Look at I stay in a small little town. I mean, it's nowhere near to the size of Calcutta or Madras or Bombay. It's in one corner of the country.
I love it that you say Bombay and Madras.
It's forever. It's not. It's forever. It's forever Bombay and Madras. It's Mount Road. It's not Anasalai for
Mount
me.
Road, indeed,
Okay.
and Calcutta.
Anyway, so coming to what I was saying. So in the small little town that I am, which has now sprung up into a city, there is no corporate sector. There's just a one small oil refinery of Indian Oil Corporation, and there is no other as such corporate sector. There's government and there's a government thing, and you would be amazed if you go out on the street every 15 minutes, you get to see a Mercedes or an Audi, cruising by every 15 minutes. I wonder where is that money
Wow.
coming in from?
Hmm.
Mind you, there is no corporate sector. This is just a trading outpost. Trading. It's a frontier town. It's a trading outpost. It's an entry point. So people live by trading. Rest are in government jobs. And then there is a refinery. That's about the story of the place that I live in. But you would be amazed about the kind of lifestyle and as defined as exhibited. But then let's not get into all of that and digress. So when I look at the way you are and you're enjoying things in the part of the country, in the part of the world, which is wonderful. Uh, last time around when I was there, I enjoyed the walk. I took a walk from Times Square down Broadway right up to the other end through Greenwich Village,
Oh, lovely.
right up to the other end. And then finally, I was putting up at Brooklyn, so I crossed the bridge, and then from there I took a metro and to the last stop in Brooklyn. Wonderful. Okay, now about I presume you still have a connect with India, with people, as in relations, as in people you have.
Very
So,
much.
and how often are you, if I may use the word, how often are you involved with things as in India? I mean, how often are you involved? Or do you have at times, do you ever wonder that, okay, fine, um, let me think of, putting up something, no matter how small it would be in a very small way. Do you ever nurture or do you ever think on those lines? Or does a thought hit you like that? It doesn't matter, even otherwise. I'm just asking.
Yeah. I mean, I can answer from like the superficial to like the serious stuff, but I was I was one of the 35,000 people who went and saw the India-Pakistan game last Sunday in New
Oh,
York.
wonderful.
And so, very much big fan of cricket, big fan of course, right now I like the US team also, so I'm a little conflicted, in the US versus India. What
Yeah.
do I do? So very much, follow what's going on there. Uh, at least as far as sports goes. Uh, Politics, certainly, everybody talks about it. It's important in terms of what is going on there. So certainly follow politics as well. I do have some connects in India. We collaborate on music together. So
Oh,
we
wonderful.
do we sort of do virtually we get together and I
Wonderful.
have of really talented guitarist friends and I sing and
Oh,
uh,
wonderful.
we do stuff. You may have seen him play in Mardi Gras in the 70s. He's a really talented guitarist in Madras. Um, and so certainly there is
You
that connect as well.
you are talking about, wait a moment, Mardi Gras in the 70s.
Yeah, Raghu is his name.
Raghu, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, hmm. Please
and
carry on. Huh? So you are in touch with him and you're creating
yeah,
music.
we collaborate on music
Okay,
together,
okay,
and we do stuff together. Plus
okay.
a couple of others too. Were recently we did something, four of us, Ragumi and a couple of others.
Ah,
So there's that connect in terms of collaborating with them and doing
ah.
whatever 60s and 70s rock that we
Oh,
enjoy.
lovely, lovely, lovely.
Uh,
That's fantastic. So, what's your favorite band? I mean, I'm talking about from the 60s and 70s.
yeah. I like this is a Bob Dylan T-shirt
Oh, yeah,
album.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
I like Bob Dylan. I like Beatles, Rolling Stones. I like The Who. Last night we went and saw Tommy at Broadway. Tommy
Okay,
Rock
okay.
Opera.
So it's on
That is,
Broadway, Tommy.
yeah, Tommy's on Broadway now, so it
Oh,
was
oh,
fantastic. So when you
lovely.
talked about, Times Square last night, I was sort of milling around there.
Ah,
I took my wife and two kids
ah.
and we have some very close friends. We all went and saw Tommy. I mean, this friend of
Oh,
mine and I were together in high school and college, and we grew up listening to Tommy. So it was a very sort
Tommy
of
was like, you can say it was like, what do you call it? Uh, at one point in time, it was like, if you haven't heard, I mean, you are not there. You are just not there. I mean, it was like that, Tommy. I I still get goosebumps, and
I did
and
last night, plenty
oh, wonderful.
from the first chord onwards.
Ah,
So clearly, I think that's a big part of the connect. And then of course, there are some institutions that uh, some orphanages that we contribute to and sort of sponsor some kids there or whatever. So that's the
wonderful,
most part of India
wonderful,
Connect.
wonderful. But this is certainly very pleasing that you are carrying on with your love for music and you are collaborating with friends as in India and you are doing music. I much like you, we went through the same, that is Beatles, Dylan, Simon Garfunkel, and Clapton and JJ Cale and the rest of it, and that's how we carried on. Our journey has been like that, and it's so wonderful. It's lovely to hear you that you are carrying on with it. And
What's your favorite band if you have to name one?
look at heart, I'm a Beatle maniac at heart. Okay,
Same. It
but
has to be
but
Beatles.
but 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 I'm a Beatle maniac at heart. But if you ask me, I love uh, I love this band Traffic, Steve Winwood.
Of course. Low
I
Spark of High Heel Boys.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that band, and otherwise, I mean, there's so many you can't actually pick up.
Very tough. Yeah.
You can't pick up. It's so difficult. And
You like the Grateful Dead?
oh yes, very much.
There you go.
Grateful Dead. And if you allow me, let me be honest and candid. Mardi Gras, music, Grateful Dead, and a pot of trichy grass.
Those,
That used to be.
Mardi Gras had some really talented bands who'd come from
Absolutely. It
all over
was,
the country.
and what I love about that campus is you have, deers moving around. You have, it's such a wonderful campus. You have
Yeah.
open air. I think, if I remember correctly, there were three during that time. Three open air, if I
Hmm.
remember. There were three, and what a place!
What a place. Yeah. What
What
memories.
a place!
Unfortunately, all that has changed, I heard,
That's what
Kaustabh.
I heard too. That's what
This
I
is what
heard
I
too.
don't get. I don't get, right? I used to do a lot of trivia, quizzing. I was like
Ah,
really love
ah.
quizzing. So when you said you're from Calcutta, memories
Yeah,
of
the thing is, you see, those days, traditional places of cuisine was Calcutta and Madras. Those days.
correct, correct.
These were the
Neil
two
O'Brien,
places. Neil
uh,
O'Brien
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Uh,
traditional place of cuisine was Calcutta and Madras as well. Neil O'Brien was the one. It was later taken up by his eldest son, Derek. And
Derek,
then, of
do you
course,
remember Mrs. Jay Kumar, Jayashree Mohanka? There are a lot of
yeah, very much, very much. There were some there were some wonderful pizzas, and there was this place in Calcutta called Dalhousie Institute. It's a club
Dalhousie. Yeah, yeah.
where all the quizzing used to happen, and the best of pizzas used to be around.
Right.
They used to have those uh, events almost every season. Wonderful,
Sadly,
wonderful.
Mardi Gras, they call it Sarang, by the way. It's no
Oh, they
longer
have
Mardi
changed.
Gras. Yeah, and no events like quiz or jam or none of that. And instead, they have fashion shows, and I just, I don't know. I sometimes I feel, there's so much joy in like going and watching a quiz, so much joy in like participating in
But
a jam.
you'd be surprised. The story is the same across the campuses in the country, whether it is in Delhi, whether in Delhi or in Bombay or in Calcutta. No more of the kind of music, no more of the kind of college fests that used to happen then. Nothing like that. And the names have changed, as you said right now. The names have changed. The entire thing has changed altogether. So that fun element is gone. It's totally gone. Now it has moved towards something quite different, and it's more of this thing called they call it Bollywood, as if Hollywood is the reference for anything
That's
to do with films. So you have to call yourself Bollywood. So that's how it is.
that
That's
is
how
so
it has
sad.
been. It is sad.
That is
It is sad.
unfortunate.
So you probably why probably you were here during the best of times. You enjoyed every bit of
I
it, and you
have
moved on, and you moved on, and you are enjoying, and you're carrying on with it. I wish you all the best. Please carry on and go ahead and do the wonderful thing that you're doing, and don't never ever stop from your music, whatever. If need be, later on, I'll connect on that.
we
And
should connect on that
yeah,
because
yeah, I,
it's
I, I will
interesting. Yeah.
surely. And we will get back on that, on music. And my invitation remains, please come over and let's catch up as in person, and let's
That would
get
be
to meet.
wonderful.
And I, on behalf of the family, Jana family, it's been a privilege and a pleasure getting to know you, getting to interact. I enjoyed every bit of it. I wouldn't know how it has been to you. Well, but
No,
if
no,
you
it's
ask me, I thoroughly enjoyed being with you for this while.
you had me at Madras and Mardi Gras.
Okay. It is still the same to me. And what is good about the place, besides, of course, many. I I one of my passion, pastime and passion is food, and I have lot of friends who are into food, senior to me, and doing food in Madras. And I'm a huge fan of South Indian food. Now, by South Indian food, I'm not talking about, it's not restricted to idli and dosa. Okay. It is much beyond that. Okay.
Right.
That's what I'm interested in. So I love to do that. And the best part of it is I simply love the stuff, what you call puri, you know,
Puri,
the,
yeah.
yeah, that is my favorite. Just sprinkle a bit on your rice, add a bit of curd or add a bit of ghee, and your meal is done. You're done.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, they could. I mean, it's something very elementary, but it's something very simple. But yet again, what a wonderful thing to have. I mean, just
So,
sprinkle a bit, and put a bit of ghee or maybe a bit of ghee, and you're done.
yeah, yeah. I heard
I love.
somebody told me that the singer S.P. Balasubramaniam,
Yes.
he went on these tours, would carry like, bag full of pudis and, all, rice. And then, other musicians would go with him from India, would really enjoy this pudi he brought with rice.
Oh
And
yes.
I don't know how true that is, but I just thought it was interesting.
No, no, it could be. It could be. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was so. And there are different versions. Even if you talk about food, there are different versions of sambar as
Oh,
they
yeah.
cook. But the one I love is, the Kaveri Delta version, the Madurai version. Smacking.
Oh, you really know your sambars, huh?
I love it. Oh yes, I love that bit. And so there are very fond memories of the place that you belong to, and there are very fond memories of that particular region.
Hmm.
Though I haven't been to every nook and corner, but certainly wonderful place. And as I said, I have very fond memories of that. So for me, it is Fort St. George. I don't go by the new name. I don't know. I mean, how
I
they
don't
have
even know it
renamed
has a new name. I know it as Fort St. George. So,
it. So it's Fort St. George. So I don't know how they have renamed it. But for me, it is that. And especially if you recall the High Court, the red brick High Court building.
beautiful.
Beautiful. What a piece of architecture. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So these are things I cherish, I love. And that's why I cannot get Madras out of me. I can't get Bombay out of me. It's I still call it Victoria Terminus.
And
I'm
Mount
sorry.
Road and Victoria and Mount Road.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
exactly.
course, of course.
I mean, I'm with you. I mean, these are memories. What is there to like, why change a name, right?
Why change the name? I mean, what's
Yeah.
there? I mean, in changing a
The
name.
administrative cost of changing the name is one thing, but
Yes.
um, yeah, anyway, it's just
Ah,
something that I haven't wrapped my head around.
same here. Same. So right now, so how are things there, the weather-wise?
So things are, clearly I'm in finance and there's a lot of focus on the economy,
Mhm.
because uh, as you may have guessed, the where the Fed keeps its rates is really driving a lot of the activities here. So the fact that Fed rates are at 5.5, which is really not high if you look at whatever 50, 60-year history. But in the
Hmm.
last 20 years, it's been really low. That's made it very easy for companies to raise money because cost of borrowing is very low. That's been easy to make investments. That's been easy for people to buy homes because mortgage rates are low. Now, that has come to a bit of, I won't say standstill, but it's certainly slowed down. And there's definitely a lot of interest there. The second thing is we have elections coming up the end of this year. And from an economic standpoint, there are things that I think should be concerning. Uh, Both parties want to have tariffs, and tariffs, any economist will tell you is not a good thing, and it can only worsen inflation because when you put tariffs, uh, you definitely have obviously higher crisis, and in the 1930s there was something called the Smoot-Hawley tariff that,
Yes.
yeah, you remember that, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so that clearly, amplified the impact of the depression. So tariffs is problematic. The US, one of the good things about US is, and I'm talking legal immigration, is its open sort of, its minded approach to legal immigration, and that's been very helpful from a supply of labor standpoint, supply of good qualified labor for most part.
Right. Right.
If well, there are issues in the south of the border with illegal immigration. I won't talk about.
That's it's
Yeah,
been there. It's a global phenomena. It's been there.
right. But
US
with
being
illegal migration, also they're trying to cap, and that is not a good thing because a lot of what you've seen that's powered this country in the last, I'd say 50, 60 years in areas of science, technology, engineering is been, people coming from outside, and people really finding their niche there, finding their strengths here, in the US. And you look at companies like Microsoft or Google, or you have a lot of Indians or folks from other
hmm,
countries moved here, and so that is an integral part of the US growth story. And you know, as an economist or as a finance professional, one should worry about the kind of policies that are being touted around. Maybe it's just to rally the base, and hopefully better sense will prevail when whoever it is takes
hmm,
the office. But I do worry about things like that. I do worry about where the economy will go depending on what kind of policies get done. So elections is a fairly big thing. So the two things that is really, that people are thinking about this year, and they are certainly linked, is when will the Fed start cutting rates?
okay.
So companies can start doing M&As, doing LBOs,
Hmm,
uh, and just generally raise more money uh,
hmm,
to invest in capex, invest in business development projects. And the second is, what kind of a president are we going to get, right? I mean, right now, both parties have certain policies that I don't think are friendly to the investors, are friendly to sort of the, are helpful for the economy to grow. So it remains to be seen uh, how things will unfold.
okay. So, well,
Then there
it's
are
all
those
about.
concerns around, sorry, last
uh,
point. There is there are ideological differences that have become so strong right now between the right and the left. And you see it in play in campuses and protests in campuses. And, these are not protests that, you and I sort of know gave birth to great music in the 60s, right? The anti sort of Vietnam. These are very different forms of protests, in my view, at least. And I'm not sure if there's any reconciliation. Sometimes, these protests are impeding into some very fundamental rights, like right of free speech. But anyway, let's see.
No, you are right on that, because of late that I happen to see the kind of protests across in the
Kaustabh,
campuses.
may I just interject? We are
Yeah,
running out of
please,
time.
please, please,
Oh, sorry.
please.
So,
No, if you can wind up, please.
yeah, we'll
Oh
wind
yeah,
up.
sure. So, Ramki, it's been wonderful. You have summed it up well, and about things as they are as of today. We have had a wonderful conversation. We touched upon things from the place where you started off your journey, and the rest of it we will ahead. We will look forward to. We will be in touch, and we carry on from here.
I
Wonderful.
look
Take
forward
care.
to it.
Keep well,
Thank you so much.
and carry on with your
Very,
good
very
work.
nice to meet you and chatting with you.
Wonderful. Same here. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.